I've kind of oscillated over the years that I've been carnivore, between being very strict and also being a little bit more lenient. Like for somebody that's, been on a strict carnivore diet, they've resolved a lot of issues, they're feeling great. Over time, they can kind of add things back in and not notice so much of a negative effect. But I wonder, especially after listening to so much of your content, how much of that is actually true? And I wonder if we're giving up some of our most optimal, feeling and living because we're starting to introduce some of those things. And you gave a great example in your podcast recently about, early on you were a very strict carnivore and then you ate some meat that had spices on it. And I'm really curious if you could tell the listener, like, what happened when you included some of those spices. You didn't want to be rude. I believe you were with your family, something we run into all the time. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened as you, kind of were more strict and then, you make a little bit of an allowance for some of these plants to creep back in? What actually happens?
Yeah. So, you can actually see, the contrast pretty easily. When you feel, I don't feel a little better. I don't feel a lot better. I feel 1,000 times better than I've ever felt in my entire life, including when I was a professional athlete, not on this diet. So as compared to myself. So when you feel amazing like that and you get something that slips back in and it has like little spices or whatever, like you can actually feel that actually affects you. And so this is something that, I encourage people to do. Go pure, get rid of everything and just go meat and water for a month. And then you don't think that, black pepper is that big of a deal. You don't think that coffee is that big of a deal. Okay. Be off it for a month, try back in, like you'll see a difference. And if that difference is fine for you and you don't mind that, fine. It's, it's your life. For me, it's way too much. I drink 1 cup of black coffee and I'm sore for 2 days. That's not worth it, and, I get a little bit of beans or rice mixed in with my food. I'm trying to scrape it off, but, a little bit stays on and my back feels like it's in stabbing pain for 4 full days afterwards. That's not worth it. Nothing tastes better than being healthy feels. And I believe you're sort of talking about when my parents were going carnivore, my mom started to do this. And so she was just making a big roast, like a lamb roast. And she put every single herb and seasoning she could find on this thing. It was like literally like crusted green. And I was like, oh, Mom, you're not supposed to use plants. Like that's literally the whole point of this. She's like, no, we're not having any plants. We're not doing a salad. We're not doing anything. This is just the meat. This is just for the meat. I'm like, no, those are plants. And that's, you're putting it doesn't just go away because you put it on meat. You like tip, a baggie of cocaine into your coffee and it dissolves. It doesn't just go away. It's like, oh, no, it's just coffee. I'm just having coffee. Like, okay, there's other things going on there though. And so I didn't want to be rude. I was at my mom's house and I was sort of looking at it. I'm like, really don't want to eat that. I kind of want to just scrape it off. But, I didn't want to I didn't want to be weird and scrape it off or be rude or seem rude. And so I was also curious because I was like, well, let's see what this does. Let's see how this affects me. And I'm always interested in experiment. And so I had about 1.5 pieces of lamb and I was clinically depressed for the rest of the night. I was so upset. I mean, I was beside myself. And, I get bouts of low mood and I've had, depression in the past, not to, such an extent as many people have, but it's something that I've had to deal with. And all of a sudden this came, bam, hit me just straight in the face. And I was so upset. And I remember at the time that night, I was extremely upset. And I literally contemplated suicide, not just like, oh, that'd be nuts. I actually thought up a plan. I was like, this is how I'm going to do it. And I remember thinking to myself, all of a sudden, like, thankfully I had some sort of, part in me that was able to sort of look from the outside and say, that's not normal. I shouldn't be feeling like this. There wasn't anything that happened tonight that should make me feel this upset and this sad and this low, but I do feel this bad. So this is pathological. This is something wrong with my brain chemistry. This isn't actual grief. This isn't actual sadness. This is something wrong. And so I said, okay, if this is pathological, obviously shouldn't do anything. And so I'm just going to go to sleep and I'll try and sleep this off. I'll see how I feel in the morning. If I still feel like I want to do this in the morning, I'll do it in the morning. I made a deal with myself that that's what I would do. I woke up in the morning and, needless to say, I didn't feel like that anymore. I just felt more emotionally numb. And I remember thinking to myself, what the hell was that about? And I was thinking back on everything that was said, everything, the conversation at the table, everything that happened. And I remember thinking, I was like, there's nothing there that should have upset me like that. Was I just completely overreacting to something? Or was this the plants? And I was like, well, there's only one way to find out. And so I ate more of the stupid lamb with the plants on it. And I was clinically depressed the rest of the damn day, but at least now I knew why. And so I didn't even think about suicide, because I was just like, now I just was able to focus that upset feelings towards the plants. I'm like, damn these plants. I was like, I knew plants were trying to kill me. I hate these things. Keep these things the hell away from me. And so now, and so, I have this very strong aversion to these things, because I know what they do to me. They make me feel like garbage, and I don't want anything to do with that. And you're right. We can sort of convince ourselves that, well, maybe I can have this back in, or maybe someone who has an issue derived from like leaky gut and autoimmune disorders. After a while, your leaky gut will heal. Your autoimmune issues will take care and sort of slowly heal. And maybe you sort of introduce something back on, and maybe early on, because you had leaky gut, because you had your body was more sensitive to this, you would have a bigger flare up. Well, maybe now you don't have that much of a response, so you fool yourself into thinking, oh, it's safe now. It's still poison, and it's going to build up in your body, and it's going to break down your body's ability to take care of it and detoxify, because we have a very limited ability to do that. Now, our livers are awesome. They can do quite a lot of detoxing, but there's going to be some damage done, and eventually you will overwhelm your system and cause even more damage. And then you can if you just slowly eke into it, then people will can fall off easier. Some people say that what I'm doing is too strict, and that's going to put people off, and they're going to slip off. I've noticed the exact opposite with my patients and with myself. When you have a lot of gray area, and you can, oh yeah, you can kind of do this, you can kind of do that, and then things are fungible, and there aren't just clear lines. I can do this, I can't do that. Where if you just do a pure carnivore diet, it's the easiest prescription to follow in the world. You know exactly what you can eat, you know exactly what you can't eat. My hard rule: no plants or fungi, no sugar, nothing artificial. That goes for sauces, seasonings, and drinks as well. So seasonings, pepper, that's a plant. Honey, that's a sugar. Artificial sweeteners, they're artificial. Stevia, it's a plant. So you know exactly what you can and can't eat. You just eat meat and you feel great. You can eat at any time of the day or night. It doesn't matter. If you're not eating carbohydrates, it doesn't matter what time you eat. And you eat as much as you care to, because your taste will tell you. If it tastes good, that means your body wants those nutrients. And so you just keep eating until it stops tasting good. It will. Eventually, a steak will stop tasting good. And you just go, ugh, I don't really want to keep eating that. You stop. That's your body's way of natural portion control. And so it's very, very easy. And I think that when people blur those lines, maybe it's helpful to get them onto it in the first place. That could be helpful for some people. But I think eventually it's a much stronger position to be in if you're only eating meat and water. A lot of people, if they sort of are eating other things and dabbling, they're mostly eating meat, I find that they're the ones who never really go full, and they're the ones who slip up a lot more, because it's not as big of a deal to them. They're not thinking like, oh, I don't want that anywhere near me. And also they don't necessarily feel as good. They feel a lot better than they did, but getting rid of that last little bit of carbs and animal and plant toxins actually make a huge difference, because it's that first initial introduction that actually has a big weight of effect on our system, and they sort of derail our hormonal system and our metabolic system, all day potentially. And so you can add on to that and make it worse, but you've already done a significant amount of a disproportional amount of damage as well. So that's why I do just pure meat and water myself.